For the discussion board this week, I decided to focus on the Georgia Revolutionary War heroine Nancy Hart. Nancy's maiden name was Ann Morgan. She moved with her family from Pennsylvania to North Carolina, and after marrying Benjamin Hart, they relocated to Wilkes County, Georgia, settling in the Broad River region. They were farmers and owned over 400 acres of land along the Wauhatchie Creek. It is said that the native Cherokee in the area named the creek after Nancy out of fear and respect. The interpretation of the Indian word Wauhatchie is war woman. It is important to note that there are a lot of stories about Nancy Hart, some of which cannot be proven. As for this discussion board, my goal is to share what is known about her and what evidence suggests is true. As E. Merton Coulter stated in an article that appeared in the Georgia Historical Quarterly, most of what we know about Nancy is, quote, made of legend, tradition, hearsay, inference, and myth with a touch of exaggeration, end quote. As a frontierswoman, Nancy became an avid shooter and tended to things on the farm while her husband was away fighting the Tories or the British Loyalists. Many accounts describe her as a tall, cross-eyed, burly woman with a fiery temper. As a fierce patriot, she often disguised herself as a man and snuck into British camps as a spy. She would take the information that she had gathered and she would pass it along to local patriot militias. She and her husband were both present at the Battle of Kettle Creek, a skirmish that resulted in a Patriot victory as the Patriot forces led a surprise attack against a camp of Loyalists who were on their way to reinforce the British regiment in Augusta. According to an article by Deborah Michaels, Hart's most famous act during this time involved 5 or 6 British soldiers who stumbled across the Hart farm, killed her last turkey, and demanded that she cook it for them. She was very hospitable to the soldiers as she devised a plan. She planned on getting the soldiers drunk on corn liquor, taking their guns, and holding them captive. Nancy sent her daughter Suki to get some water from the creek and to use a hidden conch shell to alert neighbors that the British were in the area. While the soldiers ate and drank, Hart began sneaking their guns out of the cabin until she was caught. She then drew a rifle and threatened to shoot. When a soldier charged at her, she made an example out of him as she shot and killed him. She also wounded another. When her husband returned to the cabin, Nancy was holding the British soldiers at gunpoint. She believed shooting was too good for the soldiers, and the decision was made to hang them in a nearby tree. For years, there were doubts about how much of this story is actually true. But in 1912, land was being leveled off for the Elberton and Eastern Railroad line that was being constructed. The remains of 5 bodies were found on land once belonging to the Hart family, thus suggesting the often repeated story was true. In conclusion, Nancy Hart was a courageous patriot who contributed her part to the American cause. She is the only woman to have a Georgia county named after her, and not to mention that there is a city and a lake named in her honor. Nancy is revered as Georgia's most famous female revolutionary hero. Throughout this assignment, my goal was to adhere to the guidelines established by the Department of History at Liberty University, as historians must be objective and honest in their research and investigations. Thanks for watching, y'all. God bless.